The fluorescent lights in Conference Room 7B at DIA headquarters hummed with that particular frequency that made your teeth ache after too long. Major Cassandra Thorne had been sitting under those lights for 3 hours now, watching grainy surveillance footage loop on the screen in front of her. Frame after frame of young soldiers, barely old enough to vote, filing into barracks at Fort Hendricks, with shoulders that hunched just a little too much, eyes that darted just a little too quickly toward the shadows where their instructors waited. She had seen that look before, in mirrors mostly, back when she was the one doing the hunching. "That is the fourth recruit hospitalized this month," said Director Vincent Stratton, his voice carrying the particular weariness of a man who had spent 40 years watching good people break under the weight of bad systems. He tapped the screen with one thick finger, indicating a stretcher being loaded into an ambulance outside a Texas barracks. The video was dated 2 weeks ago. Officially, training injuries. Unofficially, we have got whispers of something worse. Something organized. Cassandra leaned forward, her eyes tracking the body language of the drill sergeants visible in the frame. One in particular caught her attention. Broad-shouldered, maybe early 40s, standing with the rigid posture of someone who had learned to hold himself together through sheer force of will. He was watching the ambulance with an expression that Cassandra could not quite read. Anger, guilt, satisfaction, maybe all three. "Tell me about him." Sergeant First Class Garrett Wolfe, 41 years old, decorated Gulf War veteran, Purple Heart, Bronze Star, the whole Christmas tree. Stratton pulled up another file, this one stamped with red classification markers that meant most people would never see it. Wife died 3 years ago in a training accident at Fort Stewart. Captain Diana Wolfe. She was investigating irregularities in the training battalion when she died. Officially ruled a suicide. Cassandra's jaw tightened. The word suicide hung in the air like smoke from a gun that was still warm. And unofficially? Stratton closed the laptop with a decisive click. Unofficially, Diana Wolfe was my protege, one of the best intelligence officers I ever trained. She called me 2 weeks before her death, said she had found evidence of something big. Espionage. Theft of classified training materials. She was going to blow it wide open. He paused, and for just a moment, the weariness in his voice gave way to something harder. 2 weeks later, she put her service pistol in her mouth. Or someone made it look like she did. The room fell silent except for that damn fluorescent hum. Cassandra studied the frozen image of Sergeant Wolfe, trying to read the story written in the lines around his eyes, the set of his shoulders, the way his hands were clenched at his sides like he was holding on to something invisible and slipping away. "You think he is part of it?" "I do not know. Could be he is the seller. Could be he is the cover. Could be he is just a broken man in the wrong place at the wrong time." Stratton opened a different folder, spreading surveillance photos across the table. "But our friends at Counterintelligence have been picking up chatter. Fort Hendricks' tactical training protocols, the specialized stuff they developed after the Gulf War, are showing up in Eastern European military exercises. Romanian special forces using suppression techniques that match Fort Hendricks' doctrine to the letter. Someone is selling our secrets, Major, and they are using the training pipeline to do it." Cassandra already knew what he was going to ask. She had known the moment they had called her back from Montana, cutting short her leave, the first real time off she had taken in 3 years. The Defense Intelligence Agency did not interrupt personal time unless the mission was critical and the operative was exactly right for the job. How deep, all the way? "You will go through Reception Battalion as a standard recruit. Private Kira Brennan, age 22. High school diploma, no college. Worked retail in Iowa before enlisting. Unremarkable in every possible way." Stratton slid a small object across the table. It looked like an ordinary belt buckle, the kind you could buy at any Army surplus store. But Cassandra knew better. Omega red sensor, sewn into your belt lining. If you are ever in immediate danger, you tap it twice and we come through the walls. QRF will be staged 40 minutes out. Tap twice, and in 40 minutes, help arrives with the force of God himself. Omega red. Cassandra let out a slow breath. She had heard of the protocol but never thought she would be the one wearing it. Omega red was reserved for assets so critical that their safety superseded normal chain of command. bypassed every bureaucratic layer, sent an alert straight to the Pentagon with the force of a fire alarm in an ammunition depot. That is a lot of faith in one person. You have earned it. 6 years with DIA, 4 successful deep cover operations. You have infiltrated arms dealers, militia compounds, contractors cooking their books. A training battalion should be straightforward by comparison. Should be. Cassandra had been in this business long enough to know that should be was where operations went to die. There is something else. Stratton's voice dropped to that register that meant what came next was personal, not professional. I knew Diana Wolf. I recruited her straight out of West Point. I was the one who told her to be patient while the investigation ran its course, to handle it through proper channels, to document everything. I told her the system would protect her if she played by the rules. He looked down at his hands and Cassandra saw something she had never seen before in Vincent Stratton. Regret. Real regret. 2 months later, she was dead. This mission is not just about catching spies, Major. It is about making sure no one else ends up like Diana Wolf. No one else has to choose between their conscience and their career. No one else has to die trying to do the right thing. Cassandra stood. Her decision was already made. It had been made the moment she saw that recruit being loaded into the ambulance. The moment she recognized that particular breed of institutional rot that turned places meant to build warriors into factories that broke them instead. When do I ship out? Tomorrow. We have backdated your enlistment paperwork, created a digital footprint going back 2 years. As far as the Army is concerned, Kira Brennan is real and she is exactly what she appears to be. A small-town girl from Iowa looking for direction and a steady paycheck. Cassandra nodded, already mentally shifting into character, already becoming someone else. It was easier than it should have been, that transformation, easier than it had been the first time, or the 5th time, or the 20th time. There was a part of her that wondered, late at night when the mask slipped and she was forced to confront herself in the mirror, how much of Cassandra Thorne was left after so many years of being other people. But those were thoughts for another time. Right now, she had a mission. Right now, Kira Brennan needed to be born. Fort Hendricks sprawled across 18,000 acres of Texas scrubland, baking under a sun that seemed personally offended by the existence of shade. The bus that delivered Cassandra and 37 other recruits to the reception battalion rolled to a stop in front of a processing center that looked like it had been built during the Eisenhower administration and maintained with all the enthusiasm of a DMV on the last Friday before a holiday weekend. They sat there for exactly 90 seconds. Then the doors hissed open and a voice like a chainsaw hitting granite filled the interior. You have 30 seconds to exit this vehicle and form up on the yellow footprints outside. If you are not on those footprints in 29 seconds, you will regret every choice that brought you to this moment. Move. Cassandra moved. So did everyone else. A tide of nervous energy and poorly suppressed panic flooded out of the bus and onto those yellow footprints that had been painted and repainted so many times they were practically three-dimensional. She found her spot, snapped to a position that was close enough to attention to avoid drawing fire, but sloppy enough to match what an actual 22-year-old from Iowa might manage. The man who had given the order stood watching them with the expression of someone evaluating livestock at auction and finding the offerings disappointing. He was tall, 6'2" maybe, with shoulders that strained against his uniform blouse and a jaw that looked like it had been carved from the same granite as his voice. His eyes were the color of steel left out in winter rain, gray and cold and absolutely certain. This, Cassandra knew without being told, was Sergeant First Class Garrett Wolf. My name is Drill Sergeant Wolf. For the next 8 weeks, I am your mother, your father, your priest, and your worst nightmare. You will address me as Drill Sergeant. You will speak only when spoken to. You will do exactly what I say, when I say it, how I say it, or you will discover depths of misery you did not know existed. He began to pace down the line, inspecting each recruit with the kind of attention usually reserved for defusing bombs. When he stopped in front of a kid who could not have been more than 18, still carrying baby fat in his cheeks, Wolf leaned in close enough that the recruit's eyes started to water. What is your name? Private Devin Hale, Drill Sergeant. Hale. Wolf rolled the name around in his mouth like he was tasting it for poison. That is a fancy name. Your parents think they are fancy, Hale? I do not know, Drill Sergeant. You do not know much of anything, do you, Hale? But that is okay. That is why you are here. We are going to fill that empty head of yours with knowledge. We are going to teach you how to be a soldier. More importantly, we are going to teach you how to suffer properly. He moved on, leaving Devon standing there with his face the color of boiled lobster. 2 recruits down, Wolf stopped again. This time it was a girl, tall, raw-boned, with the kind of tan that came from working outside rather than lying on beaches. She met Wolf's eyes for half a second before remembering herself and snapping her gaze forward. Name: Private Morgan Briggs, Drill Sergeant. Where you from, Briggs? Iowa, Drill Sergeant. My family runs a farm outside Des Moines. A farm. Something shifted in Wolf's expression, so subtle that most people would have missed it. Cassandra did not miss it. It looked almost like approval. So you know about hard work? About doing what needs doing, even when you are tired, even when it hurts, even when every bone in your body is screaming at you to quit. Yes, Drill Sergeant. Good. You are going to need that here. This place will test you in ways that farm never did. It will find every weakness, every soft spot, every place where you thought you were strong, but you were just lucky. And it will exploit those places until you either break or become something harder than you were before. He was right in front of Cassandra now. She kept her eyes forward, kept her breathing steady, kept every muscle in her body in that state of relaxed readiness that came from years of training, but had to look like nervous tension to pass inspection. Name: Private Kira Brennan, Drill Sergeant. Where you from, Brennan? Iowa, Drill Sergeant. Small town outside Cedar Rapids. Wolf circled her slowly, like a shark evaluating whether something was food or just debris in the water. Cassandra could feel his eyes cataloging every detail. The way she stood, the way she held her shoulders, the calluses on her hands that a retail worker would not have, but a recruit fresh from civilian life might have picked up from nervous gym sessions before shipping out. Why are you here, Brennan? It was the kind of question that had layers. The surface answer was easy. The real answer was classified 6 ways from Sunday. I needed a change, Drill Sergeant. Needed direction, needed something bigger than working a register and wondering if this was all life had to offer. Something bigger. Wolf stopped in front of her again, and for just a moment, Cassandra saw something in his eyes that was not Drill Sergeant and was not evaluation. It was pain, old and deep and carefully walled off behind layers of professionalism and rage. You think the Army's going to give your life meaning, Brennan? You think we are here to help you find yourself? No, Drill Sergeant. No is right. We are here to unmake you, to take every soft civilian habit, every lazy thought, every moment of self-indulgence, and burn it out like cancer. What is left, if anything is left, that is what becomes a soldier. That is what we can work with. He moved on down the line, and Cassandra let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. First contact established. Wolf was exactly what the file said he was: hard, uncompromising, carrying damage that he turned into his methodology. But there was something else there too, something the file could not capture. A sense that underneath all that granite and steel, there was a man who believed, genuinely, desperately believed, that what he was doing was necessary, that breaking people was the only way to save them. It was going to make what came next so much harder. The first week at Fort Hendricks was designed with a single purpose: strip away identity. They took your civilian clothes and gave you uniforms that did not fit quite right. They took your name and made it interchangeable with 37 others. They took your sleep and your comfort and your privacy and gave you bunk beds in bays that echoed with snoring and crying and the particular silence of people trying not to admit they had made a terrible mistake. Cassandra became Kira, became just another body in formation, and she was good at it. Not too good, that would draw attention, but competent enough to avoid becoming a target. She maxed her physical fitness test by exactly 1 point. She qualified expert on the rifle range with a score of 37 out of 40, missing 3 shots that she could have made in her sleep, but would have raised questions about where a retail worker from Iowa learned to shoot like a DIA operative. The key to successful undercover work, she had learned years ago, was to find the exact middle of the bell curve and live there. Not so bad you stood out. Not so good you stood out. Just another face in the crowd, unremarkable and unmemorable. Except Sergeant Wolf was watching her. She felt his eyes tracking her during drill and ceremony, during weapons training, during the endless hours of classroom instruction on military customs and the uniform code of military justice. He never said anything directly, never pulled her aside, but she could sense his attention like a weight on her shoulders. On day 8, she figured out why. They were running, always running, because the Army believed motion was the antidote to thought. 3 miles at a moderate pace, nothing that should have challenged anyone with basic fitness. But Cassandra noticed Morgan Briggs starting to fall behind. The farm girl from Iowa, who had seemed so strong that first day, was struggling now. Her breathing ragged, her stride choppy. Cassandra had been watching Morgan for a week now. The way she picked at her food in the chow hall, the way she stared at her phone during the brief moments they were allowed to have them, the way her eyes went distant and empty when she thought no one was looking. And Cassandra recognized those signs because she had seen them before. In mirrors, in the faces of assets who were one bad day away from breaking. She dropped back, matching pace with Morgan. "You good, Briggs?" "Fine," Morgan gasped. "Just a stitch in my side. Breathe through it. In for 4 counts, out for 4 counts. Do not fight it. Just let it pass." Morgan did as instructed, and slowly, gradually, her breathing evened out. They ran in silence for another quarter-mile before Morgan spoke again. "Thanks. I do not know what is wrong with me. Back home, I could run for hours. Different kind of stress here. Your body is burning energy just dealing with the mental load. It will adjust. You seem like you have adjusted pretty well. Like this does not bother you at all." Cassandra almost smiled at that. If Morgan only knew how much of what she was seeing was performance, how much effort it took to maintain the mask of Kira Brennan every moment of every day. "I am bothered. I am just good at not showing it." They finished the run together, and when they got back to the company area, Cassandra caught Wolf watching them with that same unreadable expression. She felt a chill run down her spine that had nothing to do with the cooling sweat on her skin. That night, after lights out, Morgan appeared at the edge of Cassandra's bunk. "Brennan, you awake?" "Yeah. Can I ask you something?" "Sure." Morgan was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was small in the darkness. "Do you ever feel like you made a mistake? Like you signed up for something you do not actually want?" "Every single day," Cassandra thought. "Every time I lie to someone who trusts me, every time I use a friendship as a weapon, every time I look in the mirror and wonder if the person looking back is me or just another cover identity." "Sometimes," she said instead. "But then I remember why I am here, what I am trying to build, and that makes it worth it." "What are you trying to build?" "A case against aspiring, evidence of systematic abuse, justice for a woman who died trying to do the right thing, a better version of myself." "A better version of myself," Cassandra said. "Someone who does not quit when things get hard." Morgan nodded in the darkness. "My dad is sick. Cancer. That is why I am here, really. Medical coverage, steady pay, something I can send home to help with the bills. But some days I wonder if I am making it worse for him, if worrying about me is using up energy he needs for fighting." Cassandra felt something twist in her chest, something that felt dangerously close to genuine emotion, breaking through the professional detachment she was supposed to maintain. This was the problem with deep cover work. You could not build believable relationships without actually building relationships. And relationships, real ones, came with obligations that did not appear in any mission briefing. "I am sure he is proud of you. Whatever else happens here, hold on to that. Thanks, Brennan. You are good people." After Morgan returned to her own bunk, Cassandra lay awake staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of those words like stones in her gut. Good people. Right. Good people did not lie to scared teenagers about who they were and why they were there. Good people did not use someone's dying father as material for building a cover, identity's emotional authenticity. But good people also did not stop spy rings from selling classified information to hostile foreign powers. Did not stop abusive instructors from breaking recruits who just wanted to serve their country. Did not make sure that Captain Diana Wolf's death meant something. The mission was what mattered. The mission was always what mattered. Everything else was just the cost of doing business. She told herself that again at 2 in the morning, when sleep still would not come. She almost believed it. Week 3 brought weapons training, which meant long hours on the range under a sun that felt like it was trying to melt them into the Texas clay. Cassandra was careful with her performance here, missing shots in patterns that looked like a competent shooter having a decent day rather than an expert operator deliberately throwing rounds. Wolf walked the line behind them, correcting stances, adjusting grips, offering advice that ranged from genuinely helpful to deliberately cryptic. When he reached Cassandra's position, he stood there for a long moment, watching her sight picture, her breathing, the way she controlled the trigger press. Brennan. Yes, drill sergeant. Where did you learn to shoot? Her heart rate did not spike. Her hands did not tremble. She had been asked variations of this question dozens of times in dozens of different cover identities, and she had the answer ready before he finished speaking. My father took me hunting a few times when I was a kid. Drill sergeant. Deer mostly. He said I had a good eye. A good eye. Wolf crouched beside her, studying her target downrange. 37 out of 40, grouped in a pattern that suggested someone who knew the fundamentals but lacked polish. Perfect for her cover. That is not just a good eye, Brennan. That is training. Real training. The kind that takes time and practice and discipline. I practiced a lot before I shipped out, drill sergeant. Wanted to be ready. He did not sound convinced, but he moved on to the next recruit, leaving Cassandra to finish her qualification in peace. That evening, during the brief window when they were allowed personal time, Cassandra saw Morgan struggling with her rifle in the barracks bay. The weapon was disassembled on her bunk, parts spread out in a configuration that suggested Morgan had taken it apart successfully, but was now confronting the reality that reassembly was a different skill entirely. Need a hand? Morgan looked up, frustration written across her face. I cannot get the bolt carrier group back in. Every time I think I have got it, something catches and I have to start over. Cassandra sat down beside her, taking the upper receiver and examining the chamber. The problem was obvious. Morgan was trying to force the bolt in at the wrong angle, but fixing it required a delicate touch that would demonstrate more weapons familiarity than Kira Brennan should have. She made a show of struggling with it for a moment, then figured it out through trial and error, sliding the bolt home with a satisfying click. There. You just have to angle it like this. See? Let the cam pin guide it into place instead of forcing it. God, thank you. I have been fighting with this thing for 20 minutes. Morgan started reassembling the rest of the weapon with renewed confidence. You are good at this stuff. Teaching, I mean. Making complicated things make sense. Just trying to help. They finished the reassembly together, and when they were done, Morgan looked at her with an expression that was equal parts gratitude and something else. Suspicion, maybe, or curiosity. Brennan, can I ask you something personal? Sure, why are you really here? And do not give me the line about needing direction. Nobody who is as put together as you are needs the Army to find themselves. Cassandra felt ice water run through her veins. This was the moment every undercover operative dreaded. When the cover started to crack. When someone got close enough to see the seams in the mask. She had maybe 3 seconds to respond in a way that either deepened the cover or blew it entirely. I had a sealed juvenile record. The lie came as smooth as silk because she had rehearsed it a dozen times. Nothing violent, just stupid teenage stuff. Hanging with the wrong crowd, but it followed me. Every job application, every background check, there it was. The Army was the only place that would give me a clean start. A chance to be someone other than the girl who made mistakes when she was 16. It was a good lie. Good because it was believable. Because it explained any inconsistencies in her backstory. Because it created sympathy and understanding that would make Morgan less likely to ask follow-up questions. And it worked. Morgan's expression softened, shifted from suspicion to empathy. I am sorry. That must have been hard, carrying that around. It was. But that is why I am here, to prove I am more than my worst moment. They sat in comfortable silence for a while after that. Just two recruits trying to make sense of the strange new world they had entered. And if Cassandra felt a twinge of guilt about using Morgan's trust to deepen her cover, well, that was just part of the job, part of the cost. And she was getting very good at paying that cost. Too good, maybe. On day 23, everything changed. They were in the field, running a tactical exercise that involved buddy teams moving through wooded terrain, while instructors played the role of enemy forces. It was supposed to be training, controlled and safe, but Cassandra had been doing this long enough to know that supposed to be was where people got hurt. She was paired with Griffin Wade, a quiet kid from Pennsylvania who had barely spoken 10 words since arriving. They were moving through a section of scrub oak and mesquite, using hand signals and whispered communications, when Cassandra heard something that did not belong in a training exercise. Angry voices. Real anger, not the performative kind that instructors use to create stress. She signaled Griffin to stop, then moved carefully toward the sound, staying low, using the brush for concealment. What she saw made her blood run cold. Staff Sergeant Donovan Kane, Wolf's second in command, a former ranger with a scar across his left cheek and eyes like frozen mud, had Devin Hale pinned against a tree. The recruit was crying. "You think you are special?" Kane was saying, his voice low and vicious. "You think having a rich daddy makes you better than the rest of these mouth breathers?" "No, Staff Sergeant, I just..." "Shut up. You are nothing. You are exactly what I say you are when I say you are. And right now you are a waste of oxygen who cannot even navigate from point A to point B without getting lost." Cassandra's hand moved instinctively to her belt, to the Omega Red sensor hidden in the lining. This was abuse, clear and documented, exactly what she had been sent here to find. She could trigger the sensor right now, bring down the full weight of DIA and Army CID, arrest everyone involved. But something stopped her, some instinct that said this was not the full picture, that Kane was a symptom rather than the disease. She needed more. She needed to understand the full scope before she moved. So she watched, and she documented, and she hated herself for it. When Kane finally released Devin and stalked off into the brush, Cassandra waited a full minute before approaching. The kid was still leaning against the tree, wiping his face with shaking hands. "Hale, you okay?" He jumped at her voice, then tried to compose himself. "Fine, I am fine. Just got lost, and Staff Sergeant Kane was helping me find my way back." "That did not look like helping." "It is fine," Devin repeated, more firmly this time. "I screwed up. I deserve to get smoked for it," Cassandra wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him that what he just experienced was not training, was not making him stronger, was just one broken person passing their damage onto someone else. But she could not without revealing why she knew the difference, not without compromising the mission. "If you ever need to talk," she said instead, "about anything, I am around." Devin nodded but did not meet her eyes. He gathered his gear and headed back toward the rally point, leaving Cassandra alone in the Texas scrubland with the knowledge that she had just witnessed abuse and done nothing about it. For the mission, for the greater good, for all those reasons that sounded so convincing in briefing rooms and felt so hollow in the field. That night, she accessed her encrypted phone during the brief window when she could use it without being observed. The message to Stratton was terse and direct. Witness Kane abusing recruit Hale, physical intimidation, psychological warfare. Request guidance on whether to continue operation or terminate and arrest Kane immediately. The response came back within an hour. Continue, we need the full network. One instructor is not enough. Cassandra read the message 3 times, then deleted it as protocol required. She lay in her bunk, listening to Morgan's quiet breathing from the next rack over, listening to Devin crying so softly he thought no one could hear. And she wondered, not for the first time, what the acceptable cost of justice really was. But she already knew the answer. The mission was what mattered. The mission was always what mattered, and she would pay whatever price was required to see it through. Even if it meant watching good people suffer, even if it meant using innocent friendships as weapons, even if it meant becoming someone she barely recognized when she looked in the mirror. Because someone had to do this work. Someone had to carry the weight, and Major Cassandra Thorne had been carrying it for 6 years. She could carry it for 6 more weeks. She had to. Week 5 brought hand-to-hand combat training, which was where Cassandra knew she would have to be most careful. She had spent years studying various martial arts, had trained with special operations units in multiple countries, had reflexes and muscle memory that would betray her the moment anyone pushed her hard enough. So she made mistakes. Deliberate, calculated mistakes that looked like a civilian learning combat techniques for the first time. She left openings. She telegraphed her movements. She let herself get thrown and swept and submitted by recruits who had half her actual skill. It was harder than doing it right would have been. Wolf supervised the training personally, walking through the pairs, correcting techniques, occasionally demonstrating on recruits himself. When he reached Cassandra's pair, she was working with Morgan today, he watched them spar for a long moment. Brennan, step back. Briggs, take a knee. Cassandra's pulse quickened, but she kept her expression neutral. Yes, drill sergeant, I am going to demonstrate proper defensive posture. Brennan, attack me. Full speed. Do not hold back. This was a test. She knew it with the certainty of someone who had been tested 1,000 times before. Wolf had been watching her, noticing things, and now he wanted to see what she was really capable of. She had maybe 2 seconds to decide how to play this. Go too soft and confirm his suspicions that she was hiding something. Go too hard and reveal training that Kira Brennan should not have. Find the middle ground, the place where a motivated recruit with some natural talent might land. She attacked, throwing a combination that was technically correct, but lacked the polish of real training. Wolf deflected it easily, catching her wrist and twisting her into a control hold that was just shy of painful. See that? He said to the watching recruits. Brennan committed to a technique before reading my counter. That is how you get hurt. That is how you get dead. Combat is not about having moves. It is about having intent and adapting when intent meets reality. He released her and she stumbled back, playing up the disorientation more than she felt it. But as she straightened, their eyes met for just a fraction of a second. And in that moment, Cassandra saw recognition. He knew, not who she was, not specifically, but he knew she was hiding something, knew she was performing rather than simply being, and that made him infinitely more dangerous. That evening, Cassandra was summoned to the company commander's office. This was not unusual. Recruits were called in periodically for administrative checks, progress reports, the general bureaucratic machinery that kept a training battalion functioning. But the timing, right after Wolf's demonstration, sent warning signals through every instinct she had developed over 6 years of covert operations. The company commander was Captain Helena Cross, a woman in her early 40s with iron gray eyes and a smile that never quite reached them. She had been polite during in-processing, professional but distant. Exactly what you would expect from an officer dealing with a steady stream of interchangeable recruits. But the woman sitting behind the desk now was different, sharper, more focused. Private Brennan, have a seat. Cassandra sat, hands on her knees, eyes forward. The perfect picture of a nervous recruit called before authority. How are you finding Fort Hendricks so far? Challenging, ma'am, but that is what I expected. Sergeant Wolf tells me you are an interesting case. Competent, but not exceptional. Helpful, but not a brown-noser. Exactly average in almost every measurable way. I am just trying to do my job, ma'am. Of course you are. Cross leaned back in her chair, studying Cassandra with an expression that felt like fingers probing for weakness. The thing is, Private Brennan, in my experience, people who are exactly average in every way are usually one of two things: legitimately unremarkable, or very, very good at pretending to be. Cassandra maintained perfect stillness, years of training keeping her body language neutral. She had been interrogated by arms dealers, militia leaders, corporate security teams. One Army captain, no matter how observant, was not going to break her cover. I am not sure I understand, ma'am. Do not you? Let me be more direct. We run background checks on all our recruits. Standard procedure, and your background checks out perfectly, too perfectly. Every reference, every employment record, every detail lines up exactly as it should. Which is either because you are who you say you are, or because someone with considerable resources went to considerable trouble to make sure you appear that way. The room felt very small suddenly, very quiet. Cassandra could hear her own pulse in her ears, could feel the omega red sensor against her hip, could calculate in real time how quickly she could trigger it and how long it would take for response teams to arrive. I am just a recruit, ma'am. I do not understand why my background would be interesting. Cross smiled, and this time it was genuine. Predatory. Of course you do not. I am probably being paranoid. Comes with the territory. When you have been in the army as long as I have, you start seeing conspiracies everywhere. She pulled a file from her desk drawer, flipped it open. Still, I think we will keep a closer eye on you, Private Brennan, just to be safe. Dismissed. Cassandra stood, saluted, left the office with measured steps that did not betray the adrenaline singing through her system. She made it back to the barracks, made it to her bunk, made it through evening formation and lights out before she allowed herself to fully process what had just happened. Captain Cross was part of it, not just aware of the spy ring, part of it, and she suspected Cassandra was not who she claimed to be. The mission had just become exponentially more dangerous. She needed to report this, needed to contact Stratton, needed to recalibrate the entire operation. But it was after lights out and accessing her encrypted phone would require sneaking to a location with signal and privacy. And every extra movement now carried risk. So she waited. And while she waited, she watched the shadows in the barracks and thought about Captain Cross's smile, about Sergeant Wolf's knowing eyes, about Staff Sergeant Kane's cruelty to Devon. She thought about Captain Diana Wolf, who tried to stop something like this and died for it. And she thought about Morgan Briggs, sleeping peacefully 3 racks over, unaware that the girl she had befriended was a lie wrapped in a uniform. At 2 in the morning, Cassandra finally made her move. She slipped out of the barracks with the silent efficiency of someone who had done this 100 times before, moving through shadows, timing her movement to the patrol patterns she had memorized over 5 weeks. The latrine was the only place where she could be alone for more than 30 seconds without raising questions. She retrieved her encrypted phone from its hiding place inside a hollowed-out tube of sunscreen and typed out a message. Cross suspects cover. Interrogated me today. Knows background too perfect. Believes she is part of conspiracy. Request immediate guidance. Situation deteriorating. The message encrypted and sent with a barely audible chirp. Cassandra was about to delete it when she heard the bathroom door open. Morgan stood there, backlit by the dim emergency lighting in the hallway, wearing her PT uniform and an expression that was equal parts confusion and hurt. Brennan, what are you doing? Cassandra's mind raced through options. She had maybe 2 seconds to come up with an explanation that would satisfy Morgan without compromising operational security. Could not sleep. Thought I would splash some water on my face. With your phone in your hand, damn. Morgan had seen the phone before Cassandra could pocket it, and recruits were not supposed to have phones after lights out. It was a minor infraction, worth maybe some extra PT. But combined with everything else, the too perfect mediocrity, the unexplained competencies, the way Cassandra always seemed to know slightly more than she should, it was another crack in the facade. I was checking on my grandmother. The lie came smooth as water. She has been sick. I know we are not supposed to have phones after lights out, but I was worried. Morgan's expression softened slightly, but there was still something cautious in her eyes. Something that suggested she was starting to add up all the small inconsistencies she had been noticing. Your grandmother. Right. The sick grandmother you mentioned that first week. She took a step closer. Brennan, can I ask you something? And I want you to be honest with me. Of course. Who are you? Really? Because I have been watching you for 5 weeks now, and there is something about you that does not add up. The way you helped me with my rifle, that was not someone who learned from a father's hunting trips. The way you move during combatives, that is not natural talent. The way you always seem to know what is coming next, like you have done this before. So I am asking, who are you? Cassandra felt the moment crystallize around her, felt all the choices she had made over the past 5 weeks converge into this single point where she had to decide. Hold the cover or break it. Trust Morgan or maintain operational security. Be Kira Brennan or be Cassandra Thorne. She chose the mission. She always chose the mission. I told you about my juvenile record, about making mistakes when I was younger. The truth is, those mistakes involve some people who taught me things: how to fight, how to shoot, how to survive in situations most people never have to think about. I am not proud of that part of my life, but it happened. And those skills stuck with me even after I got out. It was a masterful lie, plausible, consistent with her existing cover story, designed to explain away the competencies while creating sympathy and understanding. And it worked. She could see Morgan's suspicion waver, shift, transform into something closer to compassion. God, Brennan, I am sorry. I did not mean to pry into painful stuff. It is okay. I get why you would be curious. But that part of my life is over. I am here to build something better, to be someone better. Morgan nodded, and the tension in the bathroom eased slightly. But as they walked back to the barracks together, Cassandra could not shake the feeling that she had just made everything worse, that the lie she had told to preserve the mission had actually brought her closer to exposure. Because Morgan Briggs was smart and kind, and the kind of person who paid attention when things did not make sense. The kind of person who would keep watching, keep adding up inconsistencies, keep pushing until she found the truth, which meant Cassandra was running out of time in more ways than one. The next morning brought the announcement that set everything in motion. Listen up. Wolf's voice cut across the morning formation like a blade. Friday, we will be conducting a combat readiness drill. This is an evaluation of everything you have learned over the past 6 weeks. Hand-to-hand combat, tactical movement, stress inoculation. You will be paired with instructors who will test you at full intensity. This is not playtime. This is not practice. This is as close to real combat as we can get without live rounds. Cassandra felt ice water flood her veins. Friday. She had overheard Kane and York discussing a handoff on Friday. That could not be coincidence. The drill will take place on Training Ground 7. We will be running recruits through in pairs starting at 0600. Expect to be there all day. Expect to be pushed harder than you have ever been pushed before. Dismissed. As the formation broke up, Cassandra caught Kane watching her with an expression that was almost satisfied. Like he had been waiting for this. Like he knew exactly what was going to happen on Friday and was looking forward to it. She needed to report this immediately, needed to update Stratton about the timeline converging. But accessing her phone again so soon after last night was risky, especially with Morgan watching her more carefully now. That afternoon during weapons maintenance, Wolf pulled Cassandra aside. They were alone in the armory, surrounded by the smell of gun oil and cosmoline. Brennan, I do not know who you are, but I know you are not a 22-year-old from Iowa. Cassandra's hand drifted toward her belt, toward the Omega Red sensor, but Wolf held up one hand. I am not going to turn you in. I am not even going to ask why you are really here. But I need you to know something. Kane and York are dirty. I have been documenting their conduct for months. Equipment going missing. Recruits getting hurt in ways that do not match the official reports. I have been trying to build a case, but every time I get close, the evidence disappears. Why are you telling me this? Because whatever happens Friday, you need to watch your back. This drill, it is not what it seems. Cross is planning something. I do not know what, but I know it involves you. Their eyes met, and Cassandra saw something in Wolf she had not seen before. Not suspicion, not hostility, but a kind of weary alliance. Two people hunting the same ghost from different directions. Thank you, Drill Sergeant. Do not thank me yet. Just stay alive. He walked away, leaving Cassandra alone with the rifles, and the realization that her cover was hanging by threads. Wolf suspected. Morgan suspected. Cross knew. And in 3 days, everything would either come together or fall apart. Wednesday night, Cassandra finally managed to send another encrypted message. Combat drill Friday, same day as overheard handoff. Cross suspects identity. Wolf knows I am undercover, but does not know who I work for. Believe Cross planning to use drill as cover for elimination. Request extraction authorization or Omega Red standby. The response came back within 10 minutes, and it was not what she wanted to hear. Negative on extraction, continue mission, QRF on standby, activate Omega Red only if immediate threat to life. We need evidence of full network before we move. Kavanaugh connects to larger Eastern European operation. Dozens of American lives at stake. You are our only shot at this, Thorne. Diana Wolf died for nothing if we do not stop this. Stay sharp. Cassandra read the message 3 times before deleting it. Stay sharp. As if she was not already sharp enough to cut herself on her own awareness. As if she could not feel the walls closing in from every direction. She returned to her bunk and lay awake, watching the darkness, calculating odds and contingencies, preparing for the moment when everything would either come together or fall apart. Thursday was a blur of final preparations, equipment checks, briefings on the rules of engagement for the combat drill, medical screenings to make sure everyone was healthy enough to withstand the stress. Cassandra moved through it all on autopilot, her conscious mind focused on the mission, while her subconscious cataloged every detail that might matter when the shooting started. Because there would be shooting, maybe not literal gunfire, but some form of violence that would justify activating the Omega Red sensor. She could feel it coming like weather, that particular electricity in the air that preceded storms. That evening, during the brief personal time before lights out, Morgan approached Cassandra's bunk with an expression that suggested she had been working up courage for this conversation all day. Brennan, I need to tell you something. Okay, I have been thinking about what you said, about your past, about the mistakes you made, and I want you to know that I do not judge you for it. We all have things we are not proud of. We all have reasons we are here that are more complicated than the recruiting posters suggest. I appreciate that, Briggs. But I also need you to know that if something happens tomorrow, if things get intense during the combat drill, I have got your back. Whatever you are carrying, whatever you are afraid of, you do not have to carry it alone. Okay? Cassandra felt something crack in her chest, some carefully maintained wall that separated the operative from the human being. Because Morgan meant it. She was offering genuine friendship, genuine support, genuine trust. And Cassandra was going to repay that trust by using her as an unwitting asset in an intelligence operation. Thank you. That means a lot. They sat in silence for a moment. 2 young women on the eve of something neither of them fully understood, both carrying secrets that would reshape everything if spoken aloud. Brennan, can I ask you one more thing? Sure. If you could go back, would you still enlist? Knowing everything you know now about what it is like here, would you still make the same choice? It was the kind of question that deserved an honest answer. The kind of question Cassandra Thorne could have answered with nuance and complexity. But Kira Brennan had to answer differently. Yes, because whatever else happens here, at least I am trying to be someone worth becoming. At least I am not running away anymore. Morgan smiled, and it was genuine and warm and completely undeserved. That is what I thought you would say. That is why you are going to make it, Brennan. You have got that thing that some people have. That core of something solid that does not break no matter how hard they push you. If you only knew, Cassandra thought. If you only knew how much of me is already broken. But she smiled back and accepted the compliment and hated herself just a little bit more. After Morgan returned to her bunk, Cassandra lay in the darkness and ran through the next day's likely scenarios one more time. Best case, she would gather evidence during the combat drill, trigger Omega Red at the optimal moment. QRF would arrive and arrest everyone involved. Clean operation, successful mission, minimal collateral damage. Worst case, Cross or Kane made a move before she could respond. She would be forced to break cover violently, blow the entire investigation, possibly get people killed in the resulting chaos. Most likely case, something in between. Something messy and complicated that would require her to make impossible choices in real time with incomplete information. She checked the Omega Red sensor one more time, running her fingers over the fabric of her belt until she felt the slight bulge where the device was concealed. 2 taps. That is all it would take. 2 taps and help would come crashing through every barrier between her and safety. But help could not come until she had what she needed, until she could prove not just that Kane and York were selling secrets, but that Cross was coordinating it, that Kavanaugh was buying it, that the whole network was exposed and vulnerable. 2 taps, but only at the right moment. At 0400, Cassandra gave up on sleep. She rose in the darkness, moving silently so as not to wake the others, and made her way to the latrine. She splashed water on her face and looked at herself in the mirror. Kira Brennan looked back at her, or was it Cassandra Thorne? Sometimes she honestly could not tell anymore. In 12 hours, one of those women would cease to exist. The only question was which one. She returned to the barracks and began the ritual of preparation, lacing boots with the particular care of someone who knew that improperly tied laces could mean the difference between life and death. Checking her uniform for loose threads that might catch on equipment. Running through muscle memory exercises, subtle movements that kept her body ready without drawing attention. Morgan woke and caught her eye across the bay. Are you ready for this? As ready as I will ever be. We will be okay. We have trained for this. Cassandra nodded, but she was thinking about all the things they had not trained for. The conspiracy, the corrupt officers, the foreign buyers waiting at the tree line, the moment when she would have to choose between maintaining her cover and staying alive. The moment when Kira Brennan would die and Cassandra Thorne would have to explain to 37 betrayed recruits why she had lied to them for 8 weeks. Friday morning arrived with the particular quality of light that seemed designed to make everything look stark and unforgiving. Formation was subdued, everyone feeling the weight of what was coming. Wolf looked like he had not slept, his uniform perfect, but his eyes carrying shadows that suggested he had spent the night somewhere darker than his quarters. Training Ground 7, full combat load. Water and ammunition are already staged. You will be briefed on specific objectives when you arrive. Move out. They moved in a loose column, 38 recruits and 6 instructors, covering the 3 miles to Training Ground 7 in silence. The training ground itself was a clearing ringed by mesquite and live oak, with various obstacles and structures designed to simulate urban combat environments. In the center was a large matted area where hand-to-hand training usually took place. As they approached, Cassandra saw what she had been expecting. 3 black Suburbans parked just beyond the tree line, partially concealed by morning shadows. Not military vehicles, not part of the training exercise. Civilian vehicles with tinted windows and out-of-state plates. Kavanaugh was here. The handoff was happening now, during the chaos of the combat drill, while everyone was distracted. Kane stepped forward to brief them, and his voice carried an edge of anticipation that made every instinct Cassandra had developed over 6 years scream in warning. Today you will demonstrate everything you have learned. Each recruit will face one instructor in hand-to-hand combat, full contact. The fight ends when one person submits or is rendered unable to continue. This is your final test. He started calling out pairings. Devon with York, Griffin with another instructor, other recruits with other instructors, and then Private Brennan. You are with me. Of course she was. Kane had been watching her for weeks, suspicious and calculating, and now he had maneuvered himself into position to test her personally. Cassandra stepped onto the mat, her body loose and ready, her mind clear and focused. Around the perimeter of the training ground, she could see the other instructors positioning themselves. She could see Captain Cross watching from near the tree line, standing close to those black Suburbans. She could see Wolf standing apart from everyone else with an expression that might have been concern. And then she saw the man emerging from the lead Suburban. 50s maybe, weathered face, expensive suit that looked out of place in the Texas scrubland. He was talking on a phone, gesturing with his free hand. This was Donovan Kavanaugh. Ready, Brennan? Kane circled her slowly, hands up in a fighting stance. Let us see what you are really made of. Cassandra settled into her own stance. 2 taps on the Omega Red sensor would bring QRF in 40 minutes. Too long. Whatever was going to happen would happen in the next 10 minutes. She would have to handle this alone. She would have to time her revelation perfectly. She thought about Diana Wolf, about Stratton's faith in her, about Morgan's trust, about all the lies she had told and all the costs she had paid. And then Kane attacked, and there was no more time for thinking. Only the mission, only survival, only the endgame that had been coming for 8 weeks and was finally, inevitably, here. Kane came at her hard and fast, no warning, no hesitation, a combination designed to overwhelm. Cassandra blocked the first strike, deflected the second, but the third caught her shoulder and the impact was real. He was not holding back. She stayed in character, defended like someone who had learned the basics but lacked the polish of a professional. Let him push her back across the mat. Let him think he was winning. But Kane was not buying it. Stop playing, Brennan. He increased the pressure, his strikes coming faster, harder. Fight me like you mean it. Cassandra had to adjust her defense to match his intensity. She was still losing, still taking hits, but she was losing too well. Moving with an efficiency that came from years of training she was supposed to have never received. Then Kane changed tactics, went low, swept her legs. When she hit the mat, he followed with an elbow strike aimed directly at her throat. Full force, lethal intent. Cassandra's body reacted before her mind could stop it. Pure muscle memory from 6 years of DIA training. She rolled, trapped his arm, reversed the position with a technique that was textbook close quarters combat. For 2 seconds, she had him locked in a submission hold that no 22-year-old retail worker from Iowa should have known existed. Kane's eyes went wide. I knew it. He broke free with brute strength and came at her again. But this time there was murder in his eyes. This time he was not testing her. He was trying to silence her. Cassandra made her choice in the space between heartbeats. She could not maintain the pretense and survive. But she needed evidence first, needed witnesses, needed the conspiracy exposed before she triggered Omega Red. She let his next strike connect, a solid hit to her jaw that split her lip and sent blood flooding into her mouth. Real pain, real damage. She fell backward across the mat, her hand moving to her belt, fingers finding the concealed sensor. The training ground went silent. Every recruit, every instructor watching this brutal display. In that silence, Cassandra heard Captain Cross's voice, distant but clear, speaking into a radio. Now. Move the package now, while everyone is distracted. Cassandra pressed the Omega Red sensor twice. 3 seconds of nothing. 3 seconds where she thought the device had failed. 3 seconds where she was alone with a man who wanted her dead and a conspiracy that was about to escape. Then she heard it. The high-pitched whine of turbocharged engines pushed beyond their limits. Not the black Suburbans. Different vehicles. Military vehicles approaching fast. Kane heard it too. His head snapped toward the sound. What the hell? Cassandra took the opening, swept his legs with a technique that was all professional operator, no pretense left, dropped him hard, stood over him, blood on her lips, and let her voice change completely. Staff Sergeant Donovan Kane, Sergeant Thaddeus York, Captain Helena Cross. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit espionage, theft of classified materials, violation of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. I am Major Cassandra Thorne, Defense Intelligence Agency. Do not attempt to flee. The silence was absolute. Then chaos erupted. Kane lunged from the ground, desperation and rage driving him. Cassandra sidestepped, caught his arm, used his momentum to drive him face first into the mat. The impact was brutal. Before he could recover, she had his arm twisted behind his back in a control hold. Do not move. I have broken 14 bones in the line of duty. Yours would be 15 through 17. Simultaneously, 2 other things happened. Captain Cross sprinted for the black Suburbans, one hand on her radio, the other reaching for her sidearm. York grabbed Devin Hale, wrapped an arm around the kid's throat, used him as a human shield. His face was panicked, his movements desperate. Wolf moved. One moment standing apart from the chaos, the next sprinting toward York with purposeful violence. York, stand down. Stay back, Garrett. York tightened his grip. Devin's face was turning purple. I will snap his neck. Wolf slowed, hands raised. Thad, think about what you are doing. Where does this end? You hurt that kid. You are done forever. I am done anyway. York was backing toward the tree line, dragging Devin with him. 3 Suburbans. Cross has the package. If I can just... He never finished. Morgan Briggs grabbed a training rifle from the rack beside the mat. Empty. Unloaded. But 40 pounds of polymer and steel. She swung it like a bat into the back of York's knees. His legs buckled. Devin twisted free, gasping. Wolf was there instantly, driving York to the ground, pinning him with professional precision. Anybody got zip ties? 2 instructors rushed forward with restraints. Within seconds, York was secured, face pressed into Texas clay. Cassandra released Kane to the other instructors and took off sprinting toward the tree line. Cross was almost to the first Suburban. The door was opening. A man in an expensive suit was gesturing frantically for her to get in. QRF Suburbans burst through the tree line from the opposite direction. Tactical operators poured out, rifles up. They blocked two of the escape vehicles. But the third Suburban, the one Cross was climbing into, had a clear path through a gap in the scrub oak. Its engine roared. Cassandra ran harder. 30 yards, 20, 10. She was not going to make it. Morgan appeared beside her, still carrying the training rifle. "Can you stop them?" Cassandra looked at her. Saw not the scared farm girl, but someone who had made a choice to act. Someone who had saved Devin's life. "Give me the rifle." Morgan tossed it without hesitation. Cassandra caught it, pivoted, hurled it like a spear at the accelerating Suburban. 40 pounds of polymer and steel tumbling end over end through the morning air. It struck the rear tire. The tire did not pop, but the impact threw off the driver's control for one critical second. The Suburban swerved, overcorrected. Two QRF vehicles cut across its path. The Suburban tried to brake, skidded on gravel, slammed into a massive live oak with a crunch of metal and glass that echoed across the training ground. Silence. Dust settling. Engine ticking. Then the doors burst open. Cross stumbled out first, blood streaming from a cut on her forehead. Sidearm drawn. Kavanaugh emerged from the driver's side. Mid-50s, weathered face, expensive suit now torn and dirty. "FBI, drop your weapons." The QRF team surrounded them. A dozen rifles trained on two people with nowhere left to run. Cross looked around, at the tactical operators, at Cassandra 30 yards away, with blood still on her split lip, at Wolf securing York near the training mat. Her face cycled through emotions: rage, desperation, resignation, something that looked almost like relief. She dropped her weapon. Kavanaugh reached for his jacket. A tactical operator fired a less lethal round, hit his thigh, dropped him screaming. It was over. 8 weeks of deep cover, 6 weeks of lies and performance and careful documentation, ending in 15 seconds of violence in a smoking Suburban wrapped around a tree. Cassandra stood there breathing hard, watching the tactical team process arrests, watching 3 black Suburbans get secured, watching her mission conclude with messy success. Then she became aware of 37 recruits staring at her, 37 people she had lied to for 8 weeks, 37 faces showing shock, betrayal, dawning understanding. Morgan stood closest, pale, eyes fixed on Cassandra with intensity. "Brennan," Morgan said quietly, "or whoever you are, what the hell just happened?" A fourth vehicle rolled into the clearing. Black sedan, government plates. 2 men stepped out. Lieutenant General Wilhelm Grant, 59, silver hair, shoulders carrying 37 years of service. He surveyed the scene with grim satisfaction. Director Vincent Stratton, 64, moving with deliberate care, eyes still sharp with intelligence. Grant's gaze found Cassandra. "Major Thorne, report." Every recruit heard the rank. She snapped to attention. "Sir, Asset Nightingale reporting successful completion Operation Iron Gate. 3 suspects in custody: Captain Helena Cross, Staff Sergeant Donovan Kane, Sergeant Thaddeus York. 1 additional suspect, civilian contractor Donovan Kavanaugh, primary buyer for classified materials. Evidence secured includes encrypted devices, financial records, approximately $40,000 cash." Grant walked past the tactical teams, past the restrained suspects, past the damaged Suburban, stood directly in front of Cassandra. In full view of everyone, he saluted her. "Major, well done." Cassandra returned the salute, hand crisp despite the blood on her face and exhaustion threatening to drag her under. "Thank you, sir." Stratton approached. Did something that surprised her, pulled her into a brief embrace. "Diana Wolf's death meant something, after all," he said quietly. "You finished her work. This network sold intelligence that would have killed American soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq. You just saved dozens of lives, maybe hundreds." He stepped back, addressed the assembled recruits. "What you witnessed today is classified. You will not discuss it with anyone outside this training ground. You will not post about it on social media. You will not mention it in letters home. This is a matter of national security. The consequences for violating operational security are severe. Is that understood? A ragged chorus. Yes, sir. You will each be interviewed by counterintelligence agents over the next 48 hours. Answer honestly. After that, your training resumes under new leadership. Grant gestured to officers who had emerged from other vehicles. These instructors will escort you back to barracks. Dismissed. The recruits moved out in a daze, casting backward glances at Cassandra like she was something dangerous they could not process. Morgan was last to leave, eyes meeting Cassandra's one final time with questions too complicated to ask. Then she was gone. Wolf approached slowly, hands visible, posture suggesting awareness that he was surrounded by people with guns who might not be clear on his allegiance. General Grant, sir. I would like to make a statement. Grant studied him. Go ahead, Sergeant. I suspected something was wrong, not Major Thorne specifically. I did not know who she was, but I knew Kane and York were operating outside protocols. I documented what I could. Made reports to Captain Cross that I now realize went directly to a conspirator. His jaw tightened. I should have gone over her head, should have contacted your office directly. I failed to act decisively. You also stopped York from escaping with a hostage, Cassandra said quietly. You potentially saved that recruit's life. Wolf looked at her, eyes carrying respect or resentment or both. You played me for 8 weeks, pretended to be something you were not. Used my suspicions, my grief, everything about this battalion to build your case. That is effective intelligence work, Major, but it is also lying to people who deserve better. You are right, no point denying it. I lied to everyone here, used relationships as tools, documented your conduct while pretending to be a recruit under your authority, and I would do it again. Because those lies stopped classified information from reaching foreign intelligence services. Those lies dismantled a spy ring that would have gotten American soldiers killed. Sometimes the mission requires costs that feel wrong but are necessary. Necessary? Wolf's voice was flat. My wife died investigating something like this at Fort Stewart. Abuse, corruption, people in positions of trust betraying everything they swore to uphold. The investigation was buried, the perpetrators protected. Diana paid the price for trying to do the right thing. So do not tell me about necessary costs, Major. I have paid them. The clearing fell silent except for tactical teams searching Suburbans. Suspects being processed. Grant cleared his throat. Sergeant Wolf, you are being placed on administrative leave pending investigation of your conduct. Standard procedure, not a judgment of guilt. Major Thorne's reports indicate you were not part of the conspiracy, but we need to verify through formal channels. Understood? Yes, sir. You will also undergo psychological evaluation. The loss of your wife, the stress of this assignment, your conduct toward recruits, all needs examination by professionals. This is not punishment, it is care. The Army failed you after Captain Wolf died. We will not fail you again. Wolf's shoulders sagged slightly, tension releasing. Thank you, sir. He walked away, escorted by 2 military police officers who treated him with respect. Stratton approached Cassandra again, holding a folder. Your debrief is Monday at headquarters, but take 2 weeks leave first, real leave. Go somewhere you have never been. Be Cassandra Thorne for a while. Remember who she is underneath all the cover identities. And after that? After that, another mission. There is always another mission, but you do not have to take it. You have given 6 years to this work. You have earned the right to walk away if that is what you want. Cassandra took the folder, but did not open it. Is that what you think I should do? Walk away? Stratton smiled sadly. I think you should do whatever lets you sleep at night. For me, it was the work, knowing that every lie I told, every friendship I betrayed, every piece of myself I left in the field, it all added up to something that mattered. But that was my choice. It does not have to be yours. He started walking away, then turned back. One more thing. That recruit, Morgan Briggs, she is going to want answers, and she deserves them. Whatever you decide to tell her, make sure it is the truth. She earned that much. The next 2 days were interviews and reports and statements. Cassandra answered with mechanical precision, providing facts and timelines while carefully avoiding discussion of how it felt to lie to people who trusted her. The recruits were interviewed individually. Most would complete training under new instructors. Some would wash out. A few would request transfers, wanting nothing to do with Fort Hendricks. On the third day, Cassandra was clearing out her temporary quarters when there was a knock. Morgan. She looked different in civilian clothes, younger, more vulnerable without the armor of uniform. She stood in the doorway, hands in pockets, eyes carrying intensity. "Can I come in?" "Of course." Morgan entered, sat on the bunk where Kira Brennan had slept for 8 weeks. Looked around the empty room as if searching for remnants of the person she had known. "They told us we could request transfers. Most people are taking it. Devin left yesterday. Griffin leaves tomorrow." "Are you?" Morgan shook her head. "No. I am going to finish what I started here. Complete training, earn my MOS, serve my enlistment. My father did not raise me to quit when things got hard." "Your father. How is he?" "He died 2 days ago." Morgan's voice was steady, but her eyes were bright. "Liver failure. They called me, let me talk to him before he passed. He said he was proud of me, said I was doing the right thing. I am so sorry. Do not be. He lived longer than doctors said he would. And because of Army medical coverage, his last 6 months were comfortable. Pain managed, dignity intact. That was worth everything." Silence. Cassandra searched for words that would not be lies. Found herself wanting, for the first time in 8 weeks, to give Morgan something real. "You saved lives on that training ground. Devin's life. Maybe mine. You did not freeze. You acted. That takes courage." Morgan looked at her directly. "Was any of it real? The friendship, the conversations, the person I thought I knew as Kira Brennan? Was any of it real?" The question Cassandra had been dreading. The friendship was real. My reasons for being there were not, but the connection I felt to you was genuine. I did not plan for that. It complicated everything. But you used it. Used my trust to deepen your cover. Yes, I did. And I would do it again, because the mission required it. But that does not mean I feel good about it. It does not mean I do not carry the weight of what I did to you. Morgan nodded slowly. "They asked me if I wanted to file a complaint. Said what you did could be considered a violation of ethics, using recruits as unwitting assets without consent. What did you say?" "I said no." Morgan's voice was firm. "Because I understand why you did it. I do not like it. I am angry about it. But I understand that sometimes the right thing requires methods that feel wrong. My father taught me that. He said the world is not black and white. It is all shades of gray. And good people have to make hard choices in the gray areas." She stood, walked to the door, paused. "One more thing. They offered me a job after I complete my enlistment. DIA wants me to apply to their training program. They said I showed good instincts, good judgment under pressure. They said I would be a strong candidate for intelligence work." Cassandra felt her stomach drop. "What did you tell them?" "I told them I would think about it." Morgan turned to look at Cassandra directly. "Should I do it? Should I become what you are?" "No." The word came out harder than intended. "No. This work will take everything good about you and turn it into tools. Your kindness becomes manipulation. Your honesty becomes selective truth. Your relationships become assets. You will wake up one day and realize you cannot remember the last time you had a genuine interaction because you have spent so long performing, you forgot what being real feels like. But you are still doing it because someone has to. Because the alternative, letting people like Cross and Kane and Kavanaugh operate unchecked, is worse than the cost of stopping them. But that does not mean you should pay that cost. You have options I did not have. Take them. What if I do not want options? What if I want to finish what you started? Make sure good people do not suffer under bad leadership. Honor my father's memory by serving something bigger than myself." Cassandra looked at this 24-year-old woman who had saved Devin's life, helped stop a fleeing vehicle, was now considering throwing herself into the same meat grinder that had consumed Diana Wolf and was slowly consuming Cassandra. If you are going to do this, do it for the right reasons. Not revenge, not proving something, not because someone else thinks you should. Do it because you genuinely believe the mission matters more than your own comfort. And the moment that stops being true, the moment the lies start feeling easy instead of hard, that is when you walk away. Promise me, I promise. Morgan left. Cassandra sat alone, feeling the weight of that promise like a stone. She gathered her belongings and walked out of Fort Hendricks. The Texas sun was setting, painting the scrubland amber and rust. Recruits were marching in formation, voices carrying across evening air. Life on the base continued, indifferent to the conspiracy exposed, the lives disrupted, the secrets laid bare. She drove to the airport, caught a flight to Montana, spent 2 weeks hiking alone in mountains where cell service was spotty, and the only sounds were wind through pines and water over rocks. She thought about Stratton's question, is it worth it? She thought about Diana Wolfe, who died trying to do the right thing through proper channels. She thought about Sergeant Wolfe, who turned grief into methodology and broke people he was supposed to build. She thought about Morgan, standing at the beginning of the same journey, and she thought about the classified materials that would never reach enemy hands, the American soldiers who would never walk into ambushes, the families who would never receive folded flags. Was it worth it? She still did not know. Maybe she would never know. She returned to Virginia and reported for debrief. Stratton met her in the same conference room where it all started. Decision? I am staying. For now, until I cannot anymore. Good. He slid a new folder across the table. Fort Campbell, suspicious equipment transfers. Potential connection to Kavanaugh's network. We need someone inside. When do I start? 2 weeks. Time to build the cover. Private Amanda Sullivan, 23, from Tennessee. Cassandra opened the folder, began to read, already feeling herself slip into the familiar process of becoming someone else. The work continued. It always continued. 5 years later, Lieutenant Colonel Cassandra Thorne stood at the back of a graduation ceremony at DIA headquarters. Watch Captain Morgan Briggs receive her first intelligence assignment. The younger woman had completed her enlistment, applied to DIA, passed every test with impressive scores. She stood with quiet confidence, accepting her assignment packet and first cover identity with the same determination Cassandra remembered from Training Ground 7. When the ceremony ended, Morgan approached with a smile, holding both gratitude and understanding. Ready for this, Captain? No, ma'am, but doing it anyway, just like you taught me. Remember what I said. The moment the lies feel easy, walk away. I remember. I promise. They stood together. 2 women at different points on the same journey, both carrying ghosts, both pretending the weight was manageable. The cycle continued because someone had to do the work. Someone had to carry the weight. Someone had to lie to good people in service of keeping them safe. Not because it was easy, but because it mattered. Cassandra walked Morgan to the door, then returned to her office. On the wall hung 2 photographs. The first showed her with Stratton at her commendation ceremony after Operation Iron Gate. He had died 3 years ago, heart attack at his desk, still serving at 66. The second photograph was new, Morgan's graduation, Cassandra's arm around her shoulders, both smiling for the camera while carrying secrets it could not capture. Cassandra sat at her desk, opened the file for her next assignment, a training facility in Georgia, suspicious patterns, whispers that the network they had dismantled 5 years ago had not died but gone dormant and was reconstituting itself. She read the file twice, committing details to memory, already beginning the process of becoming someone else. The work continued. The costs accumulated. The questions remained unanswered. But she was still here, still questioning, still carrying the weight. And as long as she could feel that weight, as long as she could still ask whether it was worth it, she would keep going. Because someone had to. And she was very, very good at it. Even if it was killing her slowly. Even if she no longer knew who she would be when it finally ended. She was still here, still fighting. Still believing that somewhere in all the lies and compromises, there was something that mattered enough to justify the price. It had to be enough. It had to be.